Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Call Me Mr. Broadstreet. Today, of course, we are celebrating Ringo Starr's 85th birthday. 85. I can't believe it, and I'm sure on some level neither can he, but we're certainly happy to have Ringo around. Ringo, a very happy birthday to you, and of course, glad to have you around in such good health. So what I'm going to do basically is, what I did with Paul's recent birthday. I'm going over years in his life that ended in 5, 25, 35, 45, etc. So just to sort of give a little context as to where he's been in celebration of his 85th birthday. So without any further delay, here we go. So at age 25, what Ringo was doing is he's working on the Help album, obviously with the Beatles. Might have heard of them. And of course, later on in the year, they're working on Rubber Soul. And what's interesting about Rubber Soul is there's a song on the album, What Goes On. What Goes On is a song written by Lennon and McCartney and Starkey. Ringo's real name, of course, being Richard Starkey, for those that don't know. So it's the only song in the Beatles catalog credited to Lennon, McCartney, and Starkey specifically, so with those three as writers. So just an interesting little factoid on Ringo's 85th birthday. Next, as we're moving along, of course, we have Ringo at 35. So at the age of 35, it's 1975. He's had some hit singles during the early to mid-70s. He's riding high on a commercial wave. And really, the Beatles are the only group I can think of where all of the solo artists from the group, all four members went on to have the solo careers, each had at least a few top 10 hits. I really can't think of any other group where that was the case, where every member had top 10 hits. So, Blast from the Past was kind of a greatest hits compilation. Ringo's sort of taking it easy, working on different projects and everything. So that's a snapshot of Ringo at the age of 35. We fast forward 10 years later to 1985, a year of Back to the Future, of course, among other things. At the age of 45, Ringo is playing on the Carl Perkins special. This was I believe, either a Cinemax or Showtime special. I want to say Cinemax that broadcasted. It was held in the United Kingdom. It, of course, was a tribute to Carl Perkins. It had George Harrison, Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr, among others, paying tribute to Carl Perkins, who was a very, very big influence on the Beatles, especially the early years and the earlier songs. They covered a few of his. So they're showing their admiration for him. Ringo's drumming, George is there. A very wonderful night was had by all, I'm sure. And it really reflects in the special, which I also have covered on the channel before. At some point, I may want to do a redo of that, to recover that at some point in the future. Not today, though. So we fast forward even 10 further years into the future, into the very distant year of 1995. Yep, you guessed it, we have the Beatles Anthology again. Volume 1 of the Beatles Anthology comes out in November of 1995. The three remaining Beatles, Paul, George, and Ringo, working on Free as a Bird, which was, of course, a John Lennon composition that he had completed sometime in the late 70s. I want to say 1977 or 1978. So they kind of get together and, do that. And that's found on a lot of the bonus material of the anthology DVD set from back in the early to mid-2000s. So pick that one up if you want. Finally, we get to when I'm 64. No, wait, 65. Wanted to see if you were paying attention. So Ringo, at the age of 65, he's doing the solo album Choose Love, which I highly recommend. Technically, it was released on June 7th, 2005, so a month before his 65th birthday. So yes, he was technically 64, but he's promoting it at the time. One of my favorite tracks on that album is a song called Free Drinks. Look it up. Look it up online. Free Drinks by Ringo Starr. This was, of course, referencing when he used to drink. He's been in rehab and been clean and sober since 1989. So good for Ringo that he's living a very healthy lifestyle. That's enabled him to get to this point, obviously. So, but Free Drinks kind of reflecting back on that time, on those heady days of the 70s and 80s. Really good track, though. I highly recommend it. After you've done watch this video and you do the thumbs up, like, and subscribe, all that bit, go ahead and choose that one as the next one. So Choose Love, track Free Drinks. I think it should have been the single myself. Finally, we get to Ringo at the age of 75. Only 10 years ago, at the young age of 75. Well, he finally gets his due. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, induction. Finally gets inducted as a solo artist for his solo work, which is well deserving. I mean, the guy did have a lot of top 10 and top 40 hits, at least up until about the mid to late 70s. He still continues to release material, to tour. Of course, he's touring right now. As we speak, he's hitting different places along the East Coast and across the United States. So that's really it. Ringo, a very wonderful, happy 85th birthday to you. You know, if you want to grab an extra piece of chocolate cake, go for it. You more than deserve it. Here's to your 85th birthday and so many more.